Welcome to our first class of full stack web development. In this class, we're going to learn about HTML and CSS basics. Before getting into the practical part and the brief steps, we first off have to learn about what HTML and CSS is. We are also going to learn about why is it important and why is it the foundation of web development, and also we're going to understand the advantages and disadvantages of using HTML and CSS. Now, what is HTML and CSS? The standard language for creating and organizing web content is HTML. It uses a number of components or tags to specify a web page's structure. HTML elements, layout, formatting, and presentation can all be managed with CSS. It enables web developers to style the HTML with generated contents. Now, HTML and CSS are foundational to web development because they provide the basic structure and styling that define how websites are going to be presented and how they are going to function. Here's why they are so important. 1. Building content and structure. The basic or the basis of web pages, the foundation of any web page is HTML. There would be no structure for text, graphics, links, forms, or any other type of content without HTML. So nothing can be represented without HTML. No matter how much you do, such as JavaScript or even CSS, but without HTML, nothing is going to be represented. Content organization. By logically organizing content with HTML tags like headings, paragraphs, lists, and forms, users and search engines alike can better comprehend and navigate the page. Number 2, styling and presentation, which is CSS. Visual appeal. The website's visual look is created by styling HTML components using CSS. It improves the site usability and aesthetics by managing the colors, fonts, layouts, spacing, and general design. Consistency. By enabling developers to use consistent styling across several pages, CSS guarantees that the website's design is constant throughout. User experience, which is UX in short, which is a well-crafted CSS which can be enhanced or which is used to enhance a website's readability, navigation, and general user's happiness. In today's mobile-first era, responsive designs are powered by CSS, which ensure that websites look beautiful on all devices. Number 3, compatibility across devices and browsers. Responsive design. By using CSS, developers can make websites that adjust to different screen sizes, making them compatible with desktop computers, smartphones, and also tablets. So there is no different type of customizations needed for showing them on different platforms. Universal support. The website functions consistently for a wide variety of users, irrespective of the browser or device they use, thanks to HTML and CSS support for all current browsers. Number 4, accessibility and SEO. SEO friendly, which is a well-structured HTML page using semantic tags, such as header, footer, article, etc., which can improve the site's ranking in search results by giving search engines a better understanding of the content. Accessibility. Websites that are accessible to people with impairments can be created using HTML and CSS. Screen readers benefit from proper HTML tags and visual accessibility, which can be enhanced with CSS. An example, larger font, high contrast designs. Number 5, performance optimization, which is lightweight. HTML and CSS provide quick load times since they are lighter than other technologies. A better user experience can be achieved by using HTML and CSS to create simple websites that load quickly. Minimalistic approach. CSS can improve website performance by optimizing layouts and minimizing the need for superfluous pictures or extensive JavaScript. Number 6. Scalability and upkeep. Simpler updates. You can change a website's appearance and feel without changing the content by keeping HTML and CSS separate. This greatly simplifies scalability and also the maintenance. Modular development makes it easier to grow a website or online application by allowing developers to share HTML templates and CSS classes across the pages. In the same way, I'm going to be adding all of the commands with my resource folder, so you don't have to fall into any trouble, because if you face any problems even after seeing all of my coding methods, you can try copying and pasting it out and check if it is working. In conclusion, HTML and CSS are essential to web development since they serve as the foundation for the organization and presentation of web pages. In order to create contemporary, useful, and captivating websites, they aid in ensuring a consistent, accessible, and responsive user experience. There wouldn't be any structured layout or design to make web pages functional or aesthetically pleasing without HTML and CSS. Now let's check out the advantages and disadvantages of using HTML and CSS. The advantages are simple to learn. Particularly for novices, HTML and CSS are quite easy to learn. There are plenty of learning resources accessible, and the syntax is simple. Broad browser interoperability. All current browsers support HTML and CSS. Thus, content will appear properly on the majority of devices. Content and design separation. Whereas CSS manages the design, which is the style, and HTML manages the substance, which is the structure. Better accessibility, simpler maintenance, and cleaner code are made possible by this division. Adaptability. With the help of CSS, web designers and developers can create a vast array of visual styles such as animations, transitions, grids, and also layouts. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Semantic tags and proper HTML structure improves SEO by assisting search engine in comprehending and ranking the material. Design that is responsive. Making responsive design that adjusts to different screen sizes and make websites mobile friendly is simple with CSS. Now let's check out the disadvantages of HTML and CSS. Restricted interaction. Dynamic content and intricate interactions cannot be produced with HTML and CSS alone. To add functionality or interaction such as dynamic content or form validation, JavaScript or other programming languages are required. Incompatibility of the browser. Despite the widespread support of HTML and CSS, the same page may appear differently on various devices and browser. Cross-browser compatibility may necessitate extra effort. Problems with complex design performance. Large style sheets or intricate CSS animations can impair the speed and loading of web pages, particularly on outdated hardware or browsers. Restricted authority over advanced features. Beyond HTML and CSS, other technologies are needed for some sophisticated online features such as intricate animations, database interfaces, or user authentication. Advanced CSS learning curve. Although the fundamentals are simple, advanced CSS such as grid, flexbox, and animations might be more difficult for novices to understand. In conclusion, HTML and CSS are necessary for creating and designing websites, but they are limited in their ability to provide complex features and interactivity, necessitating the use of other technologies. So, now let's get into the practical part of the class by opening up Visual Studio Code on our device. Now, first things first, I'm going to click on Create New Folder. The name of this folder is going to be Basics of HTML. Inside this folder, I'm going to create a new file. Here, I'm going to start off with index.html. Okay. Now, inside this index.html, I'm going to put in all of the things, such as I'm going to start off with doc type. Here, I'm going to put in the HTML. Inside the HTML, I'm going to put in the title. The title is going to say my web page. After the title, here, I'm going to put in the head tag. Okay, let's also put in the head tag over here. Now, what I can do over here is I can copy or cut this in the same way. Control X, Control V. There we go. This is how simple it is. Now I'm going to put in the body tag. Inside the body tag, here is all of your content where you're going to put it in. Now there are a couple of things that we have to learn over here. First off, which is the doctype.html. This declares the document as HTML5. There are a couple of types of HTML versions. Now, the most used and the most modern HTML version is HTML5. So, we use this doctype HTML, which basically declares the HTML5. Then we have the HTML right over here. Okay? Now, this HTML is the root element of the HTML page. If you put in everything, but without the HTML, it's not going to work because it's not going to detect if you are using HTML or not. Then we have is the heading tag. Now, you can see the heading tag is right over here. The heading tag basically contains the meta information such as title, styles, and even scripts. Now, the styles, as I'm saying, is basically the CSS file if you want to interpolate with other files of CSS. You can also apply in scripts if you're using JavaScript to apply in a couple of interaction. Then the last thing is basically the body. Now this is the basic structure. Now the body basically contains the visible content of the web page. So now let's get into the body and define our headings in a document. Now inside the body, I'm going to start off with H1. Now another thing about H1 is, let's say, this is basically creating the heading tag. Let's say I'm going to put in main heading. Now, obviously when you're using H1, it basically means the largest font. But if you want to use the smallest, which is H6. So now you can understand that there are H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So whichever size you apply, it's going to be that size. Let's try putting all of those. Main, H2, H3. I'm just going to put in main on each and every one and show you how it works. H4, main, H5, main, H6. There we go. So we have all of these applied. Now, there are a couple of things that you also have to know. H1 is basically known as the main heading or the header tag. Then H2 is basically used for subheadings. And you can also use H3, which is used in section heading, which basically goes inside of the body. So these, all of them, or let's say this H tag is basically used to structure the content hierarchically. Okay, now let's get into the next part, such as the paragraphs. Now, if you've seen my previous class, I used a tag such as P. Now, this P is basically used for paragraphs. So this basically separates the content into readable sections, such as I'm going to put in this is the paragraph tag. Okay. Now you can also use more. If you go off to the next line, put in P. This is the paragraph. Now another thing that I want to show you is that let's just first off play it. And this is how it should look like. Okay. Now, there are a couple of things that you can also apply, which I'm going to show you later on. So first off, let's get into it. And we're also done with the paragraph. Now let's show you about the lists that you can apply. If you want listed order, you can also use them. There are two types of lists, which is ordered list and unordered list. First off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an unordered list. Okay? Now, unordered lists are basically bulleted lists. Now, these lists are basically expressed with using UL. So here I'm going to type in UL. Put in this. Now, instead of using, or let's say even when you're using unordered list, you also have to put in LI inside of each and every one of these listed orders. First off, I'm going to put in item 1. Okay? Now, in the next line, in the same way, I'm going to put in LI. I'm going to put in item 2. Now, if I try playing the whole thing, dispose it, go live, you will see, there we go, we have item 1 and item 2. You can see we have the biggest, a bit smaller, smaller, and keeping on going smaller and smaller. This is the paragraph tag, this is the paragraph, and there we go, we have the items. Now, if you want to use ordered list in the same way, just type in OL. Here, in the same way, put in LI. Now here, I'm going to put in item 1. Here, I'm going to put in LI, item 2. Let's dispose the port and go live again. There we go, we have 1 and 2 this time. So this is basically how simple it is. I'm just going to close off all of these so I can show you how it basically works when I open it up anew. Okay, so OL is for numbered list and UL is for a bulleted list. So UL uses bullets and OL uses numbers. And LI, which is the list, defines the list items. So now you know about lists such as unordered list and also ordered list. Now let's get into the forms, which is used for collecting the user input. Whenever you want to work with form, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. So start off with putting in form. After form, there are a couple of actions that you have to put in, such as action. After action, it should be equal, then put in submit.php. Now, as this is a database, it should save up as PHP. Here I'm going to put in method. Method is equal, double quotation, inside, I'm going to put in post. Now, basically, when you put in post, when the user put in OK or, defines the whole thing, it is basically uploaded. Now, inside of a form, there are a couple of things that you have to apply, such as the label and the input. So start off with the specific label. Inside the label, I'm going to put in the for. Now, this for is basically going to take a specific item, such as the user is going to input the name. So in the name section, I'm going to put in name and colon. So the person puts in the name inside of that specific designated area. The next one is the input value. In the input, you should define the type. Is it a text or is it an integer, which is a number? So here I'm going to put in a text. Inside the text or after the text, I'm going to define the ID number, which is ID is going to be equal to the name, so that it defines which name it is. Now, after the ID, you're going to also put in name should be equal to name. So when it comes up to the form or the end result, it should define what name was input and what should I see as, let's say, the back-end user. In the same way, I'm going to copy all of these and I'm going to paste it for making it a bit short. Now here, for, I'm going to put in email. Let's say I want the email of the user, so I'm also going to type in email over here. I'm going to zoom into the process a bit. Now, input type is also going to be text, as you can see, but instead of text, you can also type in email. Now, the next thing of the ID, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put in email on all of those. There we go. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the input value again. Input type is equal to submit. Now, after submit, I'm going to put in the specific value is equal to submit. After that, close off the tag. Now let's dispose the port first, and let's go live. Now you can see we have the name. I'm going to put in name is going to be, let's say, John. The email, John @gmail.com. If I click on submit, you can see the page isn't working, but it will obviously work when you click on submit. So this is basically how you're going to put it on submit.php. So it basically is saved in a PHP server. If you don't have any server, it's totally fine because we already have a server running. Now, to make sure that it is running on PHP server, you are going to need a specific server runner, which is XAMPP or even WAMP. Okay, so you can use those if you want to, but I'm not going to be using those because it's going to make it a lot more complex. But as you can see, you'll be able to put in the input value and also, the labels, which you can see on these sites. You can see this is the exact port which is running, and to run this all together, you are going to basically need XAMPP to run the server and to see it. Okay, so you can see you can create your own form right over here on your site. Now there are a couple of things that you also need to learn over here, such as the form. This form basically contains the form elements. Then when we put in inputs, this basically allows the fields which allows the user to enter the data. Then the next thing is basically the label, which describes the input fields. Okay? Then the next one is basically the action, which specifies where to send the form data. So it is sent to submit.php. Now, as it is not running right now, but it's totally fine. As you can see, this is how you'll be able to achieve it. Then the next one is method post, which is used to secure data submission. Okay, so this is all that you need to know about the basics of HTML, and you can see how simple it is to run all of these together. Now, let's move on to the next part where I'm going to be showing you about the CSS basics. Now, creating or making the CSS basic is also very simple. Now, there are a couple of things about CSS, such as CSS selectors, element selector, class selector, ID selector, group selector, and pseudo classes. Now we're going to apply all of these in VS Code and show you how you're going to work with it. Okay? First things first, what I want to do over here is I'm going to create a style.css file. Inside of this folder, I'm going to right click, new file. I'm going to put in style.css. There we go. Now, as we have the style.css, we're going to apply all of these things inside of the CSS file. Okay? Now, first things first, there are a couple of things that we need to know is about the element selector. Now, when you put in any name, and after that, you define in the color, like let's say color, then after color, put in colon, and define in the name. Now, as this is CSS, it is basically very simple. You can just put in the number or color, and it will be defined. Okay, now let's just get into more of the practical part and show you all of those. Okay, first of all, what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to define a dot box. Okay, dot box, open up the parentheses. Here, I'm going to define the width. Now the width is going to say, now here, when you're defining width in CSS, it's going to work with pixels. So here I'm going to put in 200 pixel. Move on to the next line. I'm going to define the specific height. I'm going to put in 100 pixels. Next line, I'm going to define in the padding value. In the padding value, I'm going to put in 10 px. In the next line, I'm going to put in the border value, which is going to be 2px. I'm going to define the color, which is solid black. Now on the next line, I'm going to define in the specific margin, and the margin is going to be 20 px. Now here, what you can do is you can apply all of these together. Now another thing that you can do is you can add a div class, box, example, and div class inside the index.html so that everything works. Okay, first things first, what I want to do inside the body after font, I'm going to open up, let's say, a box. Or first off, put in div class equal to box. Now after box, I'm going to close it off, and here I'm going to define the box example. Here it should close it off just like this with closing div. Okay, you can define in the box however you want, but I'm just going to go off in the style.css so that I can show you how it basically works. Now there are a couple of things that you need to know over here too, such as we have the width and height, which is basically the same to customize the width and height of anything or any element. Then we basically have the padding, which basically applies the space inside the border. Then we have is the border, which surrounds the padding and the content in specific pixel size and also a specific color. And the margin applies the space outside of the border. Now the next thing that I want to do is the CSS flexbox. Now the flexbox makes it easy to align and distribute elements, such as display flex enables the flexbox, justify content aligns item horizontally, and align items vertically. Okay, now one thing that I want to do over here is in index.html, I'm going to apply a flexbox. First off, I'm going to put in div, I'm going to put in class, okay, equal, then flex, put in container, flex container, and then you want to close off the tag. Okay, next one, I'm going to put in div over here. After div, I'm going to define in the class equal to, let's say I'm going to put in flex item. And after flex item, I'm going to put in item 1. Here, I'm going to create another one. Div class equal flex item, close out the tag, item 2. Okay, so we have all of these. Now this div basically helps us to create, whatever we want to in a specific class. Okay, so as we have the div tags, now let's go off into style.css. Now let's customize our div tag. So creating the div tag is basically, or customizing the div tag is basically very simple. First off, I'm going to define what I created over here, which is the flex container. So here, put in dot, type in flex container. Open up the tag. Display is going to be flex. The next one, I'm going to justify the content just like I said. Put in center. I'm going to put in align items. I'm going to put in center. Then I'm going to put in the height. Now, height and width can be defined in different ways and different units. Here I'm going to put in vertical height. So I'm going to put in 100 VH. In the next section, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to define the flex item. So here I'm going to put in dot flex item. Flex item. Okay. Open up the third brackets and move on to the next line. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the background color, which is going to be light blue. Here I'm going to put in the padding value, which is going to be, let's say, 20 px. And the last one, I'm going to define a specific margin, which is going to be 10 px. Now let's go off into index.html. Now, another thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that it is enabled inside of our index.html file. Okay, so to apply it, we have to link the CSS in the head tag, such as head, and then link rel, style sheet, href, and so on. So here in the head, I'm going to put in tag. Here I'm going to put in the link. Now inside the link, there are a couple of things such as rel. Now after we put in rel equal, I'm going to put in style sheet, which is basically the styles.css. Okay, first off, put in style sheet, and after style sheet, put in after the quotation, type in href equal to the exact name of the file, which is style.css. That's all that you need to put, and close off the tag. Now, one thing that you want to do is you want to save up this file, Control S, and then you're going to run the whole server. There we go. We have our box example, and this is how it should look like. We have all of these, and there we go. This is how it should look. Now, what we can also do is I can just remove this div class. You can save this up, remove the port, and go live again. There we go. We have item 1 and also item 2 inside of the flex box, and it is aligned center. Now, another thing that you can do is you can go off to inspect. Now, when you go off into inspect, you can see all of the items inside over here. You can also move on to mobile view, and you can see it's also going to support on your mobile. Okay, this is basically how the whole thing is going to work when you customize it just like this. Okay, so hope you understood about everything in this class. And if you have any problems, questions, or complex, things, or if you have any hard things that you cannot, complete, feel free to ask me. I'm always there to help you out. So make sure to practice up. And I'm also going to be applying the whole thing with this whole course. So you can also try practicing along with it. And you can also try copying and pasting if it is working or not. You can apply in more and more, implementations and more functions to it if you want to. And you can also apply in more features to it. Another thing that I want to show you over here is that we have solid black, or another thing I can also do is if I want full red, solid red. Now, CSS is one of the languages which understands everything starting from text to numbers. So you can put in whatever you want. You don't have to put in numbers or hex code as to represent your colors. You can just type in the name of the color and it's still going to work. So thank you again. And without any further ado, let's move on to our next class of full stack web development.